it's like when you really understand the weight of your decisions, like every little decision, every little one. And it doesn't mean you have to be perfect. I don't like stress myself out about like, oh my gosh, I got to make every perfect decision. But bro, I am trying to make back to back good decisions, because I know that if I do that, not only is does winning compound and it brings momentum, but it literally gets me where I want to go.
Alrighty, folks, welcome to another episode of the True Life Network podcast. I'm your host, Mike Ashabi, and today I got a special treat for you guys. Today's guest is a successful serial entrepreneur in franchising, real estate, and consulting, and has developed and purchased as well as sold many seven-figure businesses. He's an award-winning sales and business genius who maximizes operations and processes with work ethic, mindset, and outcome, which have been the thing that has allowed him to push the limits. He has aided both domestic and international enterprises in achieving tremendous levels of growth and success as a dynamic leader, consultant, and speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, today I'd like to bring to you the one and only Mr. Chaz Wolfe. Chaz, I appreciate you joining us today.
What's up, dude? I appreciate that. That was quite the intro. Appreciate that.
Well, bro, I mean, I gotta point out all your golden points here. You know what I mean?
Hey, got to bring some value to the audience, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So Chaz, first of all, before we even jump into anything, I know that we have a little bit of a background. We kind of knew each other beforehand. I've been on your podcast. I want to kind of take this a little bit of a different route. Usually I start off with the background.
Okay.
What I want to understand first is ultimately, what are you currently doing, with entrepreneurs and other businesses? Because, you're actually able to get a lot of these organizations tremendous growth. And I kind of want to understand and take a deep dive into the things that you're actually doing with them that's allowing them to receive the results that they're achieving.
Yeah, man. The two main things that I'm putting my hand to, I have lots of businesses in the portfolio, but the two main things right now is my real estate company, and we can maybe get to circle back around on that. But what you're asking about specifically is what I do with entrepreneurs. And so we run an elite mastermind group. It's a roundtable specifically. And so we try to be a little different than everybody else. I've always liked to differentiate and be a little creative, be a little something different than that the market hasn't seen. And so we gather entrepreneurs from all across the country. We do it virtually and in person. And we teach people how to level up, man. So I know we can get into it, but that's what we do, man. It's called Gathering the Kings. It's an elite mastermind. We've got one for 7-figure plus and one for 6 figures trying to get to 7.
So talk to me a little bit about the results that you've seen all your members, achieve recently.
Yeah. So I'll tell on the 7-figure side specifically, because really what we're talking about are two different conversations. You've got the king table at the 7-figure and above, and you have the warrior table. Two conversations happening. We've all been, well, at least you and I have been through both of these, right? So at the 6-figure level, you have the conversation of marketing or acquisition, sales, client fulfillment, finance, repeat. They just have to figure out how to do that on a repeated basis, fast enough and often enough to be able to have enough resources to be able to build a team, right? And so that's what they're most likely keeping from success, keeping themselves from success, is just the fact that they don't have those things on repeat and they don't have the systems around it. So then therefore they can't hire and grow a team. On the 7-figure side, it's more so of, okay, you've made a little bit of money, you got a little bit of team, but you're still frustrated. You're still like, heavy, wearing a lot of hats, stressed, there's lots of angles in the business. And I see you nodding your head over there because we all feel these things, right?
I can agree with that.
Yeah. But when you surround yourself with other like-minded guys that are like really pressing in, just like, even you and I getting together on a podcast, like I'm better because not only did I have you on my show, but then I listened to our show, right? I'm better because of that. Now, if we got together on a regular basis and really strategized in each other's businesses and got together, at different points time of the year and really kept each other accountable, you're going to do more this year. You're going to achieve more this year. And so am I. And that's the whole MS around the 7-figure side, is it's not so much, yes, there's systems. Yes, there's sales. Yes, there's, some coaching aspects to processes and mindset, of course. Right. But really at the king stage, it's how do I step into this fully king role, which is, of course, build your team, raise up leaders. You got to grow your sales. You got to grow your business, but it's all these angles of life. How do these things in my business associate to buying back my time, being able to spend time with my kids, right? Being able to have investments outside of my main business that's going to pay me forever, right? Whether that's real estate or other ways of investing. There's more things to think about when you're running an entire kingdom as opposed to just the battle when you're just in the warrior stage.
100%. So let me ask you this, with all the relationships that you're building, because what you're saying right now is talking about building the relationships that, you are in constant communication and
Right.
ultimately understanding what the other person is doing. And when you understand what somebody else is doing, it's kind of going to push you, to go
Totally.
ahead and achieve more, because nobody wants to be the last person at the table. You know what I mean?
Right. Yep.
So, I mean, it's like that internal drive right there that you're building the relationships off of. But let me ask you this, with all the relationships that you're building, what are the 3 most common mistakes that you see these 7-figure plus, individuals making?
Yeah. So actually, I'll break that down into a couple different subsets. Okay. So from like 1 to 3 million, they are still in the, like, they're holding on to the warrior stage. So I call them the warrior king. Right. And I've been through this stage myself where you're in the king stage, you've got some money, you've got some resources, you're starting to really put some things together, but you're still wearing too many hats. You're still frustrated at the end of the night because you still haven't delegated to the nth degree, right? You haven't really honed in on just your superpower. And that's okay, because during that process, like, there has to be you figuring out the thing and then delegating it, right? Like, you have to build the machine and then you got to go give it away. And so that's okay. Like, there's a process there from like 1 to 3, 1 to 4 million. But really, if like 4 million and above, it's really about raising up the leaders. And so if you've given it away, now you have to be like in the mode of building leaders, because if it's just you as the leader, it can only be so big. Just like when you were 6 figures, it can only be so big if you're the only one doing things, right? So back then it was, how do I get other people to do things, tasks? So that way you built a team, and that got you to 7 figures, or maybe a little over that, 1 to 2, maybe 3 million. But now it's, how do I build up actual leaders, like key roles inside the business, maybe even executives, to be able to take it to the next level with you, if that makes sense.
100%. So let me ask you this then. Let's say, for example, it's either 6 figures or actually making it through that transition to, breakpoint 2. Why do you think that it's so hard for these? I mean, I can go ahead and answer this on my end, but I kind of want to pick your brain right now too.
Sure.
From what you're seeing with all the relationships that you're building, why do you think it's so, hard for people to let go of the responsibility? For me, I'll tell you this, it's trust. I want to make sure that, my name's on it. But from what you're seeing, I want to understand what you think it is.
Yeah, it's trust. But that can manifest in several different ways, right? So like at the 6-figure level, that could be, it's a contractor or a marketing guy, whatever the trade is, it doesn't really matter, but it's him holding on to that individual task, right? And so it's because of his name's on it, or he doesn't want to lose the client, or he just doesn't think the other person can do it as good, right? And so you're bottlenecked at that point, because you don't give things away or believe that other people can do them as well, if not even better than you. So there's a mindset shift in there that's like, okay, not only am I not the stuff, right? Like, you got, like, that's number one. Like, you're not the stuff, bro.
100%.
And we all know that at this stage, right? It's my name on everything, it's my brand, it's my logo, they're my videos, you're right. It's my podcast. But at the end of the day, there's a whole team behind me that's putting it together, just like you. And so that realization of that, you might be the face, but you're not the stuff, right? And I think that when you have that humility, you can realize that, okay, there are other people that I need around me that are as, if not more important to the equation of success than just me. And then you hit that same thing at the 7-figure mark, when it's, okay, I've got these delegates, right? I've got all these people doing tasks, but I'm the leader. I'm the only executive. I'm the only one making decisions. And that, again, bottlenecks, because if you're literally the guy signing the check, like, it bottlenecks again, is my point. And so even though you got people doing the tasks, you now need people that are on your team. Like, they're on Chaz Wolfe's team. Like they're ride or die all the way to the end. They're growing up as leaders inside the organization. They're taking things off my plate, not just me giving them. They're taking things, right? Like that's when you're growing leaders, and you're growing in an organization that can grow with or without you, if that makes sense.
No, most definitely, most definitely. So I'm gonna bring a perspective that I think that most people don't even analyze, and I want your take on it. Let's talk about micromanaging for a second, because I think that
Yeah,
actually holds a lot of people back,
totally.
and I think that's really the thing that, it's that trust. It comes back down to that trust. Can this person
Yeah,
actually efficiently and effectively do the tasks that I'm giving them,
yeah,
and can
yeah,
I trust them to actually handle it without me having to oversee everything, right?
100%.
I've seen a lot of organizations that I personally worked with where they give a task away and they say that they're delegating, but then when they're overseeing everything, they're not delegating because they're still involved. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
So, what's your take on the whole micromanaging portion and the seven figure earners?
Yeah, it's a balance because you and I both worked for a guy that very much uh, speaks of control in a good way, and I agree with him when he talks about control and controlling your environment and controlling the outcome. And at the end of the day, it is my name. At the end of the day, it is your name. And so we have to take ownership of those things, which is control, right? And so there's this balance between controlling the environment, but not micromanaging. So how do you do that? Well, you first have to give it away, like you said. You have to be willing to give it away. Well, so in order to give it away or be willing to give it away, you have to have this understanding, this humility that we just got done talking about, that other people can be as good, if not better than you. So that's number one. Then you give it away. But giving it away isn't necessarily just like give it away and then turn away, right? It can't be give it away and do it with them, right? So what's like, I can't give it away and then never come back. So the balance really is, it's this give it away, but then control the environment. And so that's going to look different inside of each organization. But for me, mostly of what the language that I kind of use with not only in my own businesses, but then my, the mastermind, we're talking to other entrepreneurs, is that you've got to be able to give it away, but then you have a system in place to just to double check to make sure. And I was just talking about this on one of the roundtables last week, because I'm at the step now where I have systems in place to check people, but now I need other people to make me one step further, right? So you put managers in place or supervisors in place to check the actual task that's being done. So they now have a task of checking. And then you, or maybe you have another executive that's checking the checker, and it doesn't mean that everybody's checking on people, but you have this process or this control, this system to where things don't get dropped. That's the control piece that, Cardone's talking about. It's like, at the end of the day, it gets done for sure, 100% guaranteed. That's the control piece. But it's not just you necessarily. It's systems that you've created inside the organization where it's the person doing the task. It's the person managing the task. It's the person managing the manager of the task. However many layers you need. But it can't be micromanagement, like what you said, jumping in there with them. It's no, I give it to you. Here's the instructions and the expectation. Here's the deadline. Here's what it should look like. Here's what success is in this task. And then we'll check back later.
And I think
give them freedom.
I think that's ultimately what people don't really understand, the difference between what they're doing, right? The micromanaging and actually just having the systems in place. Yeah. But here's another thing that I come across too. Sometimes people have the systems in place, but they don't have the correct personnel. Right?
Oh, sure. 100%.
And I think that's a huge component of what's really going to allow the systems to run effectively. So what is your process to determine if you have quality people in the right roles or not?
Yeah. And you're 100% right. Let me just back you up on that, because you can have the system to check the boxes, right? On my real estate side, we call it the buy box, right? You can have it set properly, where you just and then move on. But if it's not the right people, the frustration will come in then checking the boxes, because they don't get done properly. They don't get done right. You're still checking it. You're still making sure it's getting done, but then there's frustration inside the system if you don't have the right people. So 100%. Some of the things that I use inside my system to make sure that there's right people, or even specifically right people in the right seat, are going to be, profile indexes. I use the culture index. You can use DISC. You can use different things like that to know who you're hiring first off, before they even join the team.
Well, some of those I feel like are false. I'm just going to stop you right there, and I apologize. I didn't, because I've had
that's okay.
I've had some results come in before, and then I bring the person on, and then personally I'm just like,
100%.
Did you just like put random answers and somehow guess right? Like, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Just
And you're right. You're right. It's not a foolproof system, but it's, at this stage in the game, especially for, we're talking, someone who's 7 figures and above in revenue, it's not about being perfect. It's about, a system that can be duplicated and repeated. So
Correct.
if I know that, 9 out of 10 or even 7 out of 10 times when I hire this profile, it's going to give me this result, most likely, that's what I have to lean into. It's not the perfection of, oh my gosh, that one guy, the outlier. But you're right, because I've had plenty of people who don't fit a sales profile, AKA me. I'm not a sales profile.
Bro,
But I freaking crushed it. Made a ton of money.
I've been shook by some of the people that have gotten certain results before. Trust me.
Yeah.
I bring them
100%.
in. I have a little, and I'm just going to throw this out there for you because, in case you want to use this too, what I do anytime I hire somebody, I do a 3, 6, on a 3, 6, 9, and 12-month review. And
sure.
If they pass each review, then I bring them to the actual salary after a year.
There you go. Yeah. There's lots of ways that you can onboard or on-ramp people into like the full thing, especially if you're a little uncertain about the profile or you're uncertain about the position. If it's a new position, if they're new to the industry, there's lots of different maybe reasons why you would maybe hesitate. But everything you just said, though, whether you use that detail or not, that's the system, right? So that's really the point, is that you have to have a 1, 2, 3 in place. And your 1, 2, 3 might be slightly different than mine, but that's okay. The 1, 2, 3 is okay. We probably need to hire, right? So you're going to have systems in place for hiring, whether you use a culture index or not. You're going to have systems in place for once you bring them on, how to onboard and train them. And then you're going to have a system for how do we check on them? How do we make sure that they're having success? How do we hold them accountable / give them everything that they need in order to be successful? Right.
Well, you said right there, give them everything that they need. Let's say, for example, you're in, whether it's, real estate, or even, you could even look at it with consulting. The people need to have the proper knowledge. How important, do you believe training is when it comes to your people, especially no matter what, position it is? I think that people don't realize that they have to understand the process, right?
Yeah.
And I think that the biggest mistake that I've seen with my clients, and, I'm curious to see what you've had with your clients, is they say, okay, I'm paying $80,000 a year. This person should just know it right off the bat.
Right.
And then they get frustrated. They're not willing to actually invest into providing the training and give them the knowledge to effectively utilize the resources that they're provided with, and I think that, it's another big thing that I see in that kind of break point. And I'm curious on your end.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Like, you can't, I think the problem actually that's underlying there that you've kind of uncovered, which is true across the board with entrepreneurs, is that entrepreneurs have this almost false idea of like, okay, I'm going to have this product or my service, whatever it is, I'm going to put people in place and I'm going to go sit on the beach. And it's like, when you kind of shake yourself from that a little bit, doesn't mean you can't go to the beach or you can't have this like passive system. But when you shake yourself from the reality of like that growing a business is hard and there's people involved. And so then therefore it's never perfect. And it's never like, just hands off, if that makes sense. And so I'm all about passive income and systems. Don't get me wrong. But I think that especially early on in a business, unless you're doing probably 50 million or more, like there's going to be like this constantly, and whether you're on the beach or not, So anyway, to answer your actual question, I think that there's a lot of people who have this false thought of what it takes to like lean in. So yeah, I hire someone at 80,000, I expect them to fill in the gap. Now, I can have expectation based on their history, right? So like if I've hired properly and I know that they're coming from a place where there's similar expectations and I've communicated that, then we can agree on, okay, here are the things that are expected of you. Here are the things that you already know how to do. Here's what's going to translate. But nobody's ever going to translate 100%. To your point, you're going to have to invest around them with training and support. And I mean, I think that it's an investment question. It's not so much of a systems question. It's I thought I would just invest in 80,000 and then they would just be done. But it's like, there's actually like the process and system around that person. Depending upon what their role is, they might be part of creating that process. I don't know, but it depends on what the expectation is. I will give you one example here. When I worked for a pretty large organization And I was a sales rep and top salesperson, and then later a sales leader, a sales manager, is that we would have constant turnover. And we had a pretty good training, 2-3 week training. And then, the managers were kind of just like, hey, here's your team and here's the keys, like figure it out, And so there wasn't really any ongoing training. And so that's actually how I created some systems early on for me, was just, I just like, hey, there's nothing here. And so I had to create my own in order to have people be successful on my team. And so I knew when someone came to my sales team that at the end of the like initial period, the 8 weeks or 12 weeks, whatever it was, if they didn't have their quota met, it wasn't because I hadn't gotten in there and given them literally everything to succeed. And that also made firing easy also. Not like that it's easy to just cut the cord and let people go, because obviously it's people and they have families.
We're going to have to talk about the firing part too.
Yeah, good. Well, we can, but it stems back to the initial communication, right? Like if I set expectations ahead of time of 8 weeks or 12 weeks, and here are the things that I expect you to already know. Here are the things that I know you probably don't know, but I'm going to train you, right? And I'm going to pour resources into whether it's me or the other people or their software in place. But at the end of this period, you should know this. And here's what success looks like. And if they know that and they don't meet that, then it's really easy to go, hey, this isn't working.
Yep. And you know what? I think the point that you brought up with the firing portion as well, I think that's something that most people don't take into consideration, how critical that is. We have one bad, individual, can literally almost, what's the word I'm looking for?
Spoil everything.
Spoil, or there's another word, I can't think of it right now. Basically contaminate your organization. Yeah. You know what I mean?
100%.
At the end of the day, I think what happens is when you have, a king, I'm gonna use your terms. Okay. You have a king, somebody in the 1 to 3, figure place. What happens is their ego is too involved because they say, hey, I made it right here. I can't afford to fire this person because I don't want to get back involved and work in the business again.
Yeah.
And
so true.
To tell you the truth, me personally, I'd rather, get that person the hell out of there. I'd rather get involved and go do what I got to do rather than he spoil every other member on the team.
100%. Yeah. I think that's a huge piece that you just described. 2 pieces, which is number one, don't like negativity and bad attitude and like everything that you just described as far as like a bad person just cannot be tolerated. Like even a little bit, like it has to be immediately addressed and then cut out if it continues. And then the second piece there, which is the ego. I mean, man, I even think back to where I had left my 6-figure, corporate job. I'm 25 years old. I'd purchased 2 franchises. We're doing over $1 million. And I kind of just felt like I had made it. We all have those moments where we're just like, success.
My wife had to put me in check sometimes.
Exactly. And mine too along the way. So I can agree with that. But you have these moments, you look back and you're like, okay, I should have pressed in harder at that point, and maybe that looked like something a little different in the business than I wanted to do at that time. But if I had done that, then the impact later that it would have had would have either saved me from chaos or, helped me hire a different person or grown my sales. Like you can always look back. You can't play that game in regret too much, but from a learning perspective, you can.
And I think you said something super important there, right? Just a second ago, you said it looked a little bit different than what I wanted to do, right? That bro. Just all right. At the end of the day, for any entrepreneur out there, it's not about what you want to do. It's what you got to do in order to get the job done and have it run properly. Yeah. And that's where most businesses will end up failing because they're thinking about what they want rather than what's actually necessary for the whole business to basically go out there and flourish.
Totally. Yeah. Well, and I think to your point you made on my podcast, which is you have to know your why. Like that was the main arching factor, which is, okay, so maybe today, so back then, using that example, I'm 25 years old. I purchased 2 edible arrangements franchises in the first 6 months, and I'm making fruit baskets. Like I'm literally like cutting fruit, dipping it in chocolate, maybe running a delivery or 2. I'm like a local store owner, which is great, but I didn't really want to do that. I wanted to be out and making phone calls and meeting and greeting and networking. And I was doing some of that too, but then I'd get pulled back in and I'm just like, but the bigger why, to your point that you made on my show, was if you really have that dialed in, then cutting the fruit doesn't matter. Doing a late delivery doesn't matter. staying late on a Sunday to get inventory ready for the next week doesn't matter. The tasks that we quote unquote don't want to do they mean absolutely nothing because they help us get the bigger want. And that involves the business being successful.
100%. It just comes down to understanding this. Stop sacrificing long-term self-respect for short-term comfort.
100%. And bro, I mean, I think that, so many entrepreneurs not fail in that area. We all fail in that area, but it's like when you really understand the weight of your decisions, like every little decision, every little one. And it doesn't mean you have to be perfect. I don't like stress myself out about like, oh my gosh, I got to make every perfect decision. But bro, I am trying to make back to back good decisions because I know that if I do that, not only does winning compound and it brings momentum, but it literally gets me where I want to go. And if you self-sabotage at all, in fact, I heard this the other day, and I really wish I could remember who it was. They were like, high performers, the top 1%, do not self-sabotage, period. Like, not just like, oh, sometimes. It's like, no, I do not self-sabotage, right? Whether that's substances, whether that's eating improperly, not working out, going to bed. I mean, however you want to break that down. They just do not self-sabotage. They put themselves in position every single time to win. And it's consistency doing that breeds this long history of like, wow, look back, I made a lot of good decisions, Well,
I also think that comes from the experience of making a lot of self-sabotaging decisions that ultimately you got tired of your shit that you stay committed and disciplined to making sure that you don't. So, I understand where you're coming from, but for the person still on the journey, understand it.
Totally.
It takes a lot of wrong freaking decisions to understand what to do to make the right decisions. I just want to
100%. And we talked about this on the show too. It's like, there's not you make bad decisions, right? And it's like, oh, no. The bad decisions where you learn, you grow, you push forward. But I think at some point there's this maturity that a business owner has where you go, okay, self-sabotage means right in this moment, right now. And it too in that moment. It every single time. You're like, I know what I need to be doing. 100%. Whether it's getting out of bed on time, whether it's working out or not, whether it's, doing the thing with the family, like that's my thing right now. Like I'm trying to build in systems. I've got 3 kids under 8. My wife's pregnant with our 4th. Like I've been running. Yeah. I've been running hard, man. Sounds like you have too. It's like, I want to spend time with the kiddos. Like, and then wife's like, hey, you need to actually do this. You need to actually build the system so that you can be here. I'm like, yeah, I know. We're doing it,
Bro, I only got 1, so trust me. Like, I don't know how you're doing with the 4th one on the way. Like, I feel like every time he's 5 months right now. Awesome. About to be 6 very soon. And at the end of the day, bro, I'm always on the go right now, and I feel like every time I see him, he's like bigger, and I'm like, I'm missing out. Like, I got to get this thing rolling, a lot quicker, so this way I don't miss out like that. You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah. Cause dude, it's like you snap it. And then, I have an 8-year-old daughter, and I realized the other day, I was like, okay, wow, I've had her, she'll be 9 this year, which means in another 9 years, she'll be graduating high school and figuring out whatever next step is for her. I'm like, I'm at halftime basically with my daughter. Like, wait, what? Now I understand that there's plenty of life after that, and she gets to be an adult, and we get to hopefully build businesses together and stuff. But man, like that was like, whoa, like all of a sudden, like she's not, oh yeah. Just like the time just gone, Bro,
I'm scared about that because as soon I'm going to be looking in the mirror, just like full head of like gray hair. I'm going to be like, Jesus Christ, I already got the gray hair. And I'm only 26.
I've already started plucking them out of the beard, man.
Oh God. So Chaz, I kind of want to dive into a little bit of your story too, because I also want to talk about the real estate in just a little bit, but I think it's important to touch on your story to understand what was the process and where, did you find this, passion to go ahead and help entrepreneurs and ultimately, get into wanting to work on franchises, help people, scale to the 7-figure level from 6 to 7 figures. I want to understand where the passion comes from. And now I'm sure that has something to do with a little bit of your background. So the floor is yours, give the people the insights.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think passion comes, like we've already mentioned, it can come from something that you're not running from, but running like something that you've experienced that you don't want to experience anymore. So you're passionately running towards something different.
I want it personal to you though.
I know. And for me, it's the opposite. I'm not running from something. I have always been running toward what it is that I'm made for. And so I'm going to give you some language here that I've over the last probably 2 or 3 years have really kind of like soaked in for a while, but I'm a king, I'm a builder, right? That's kind of where this language came from for gathering the kings. And it's, straight out of the Bible, where King David he's a warrior for a very long period of time. And then he becomes king, and he becomes king in Hebron for 7 years. And then he becomes king over all Israel 7 years after that. And comes a point in his career where he wants to go to battle with his men, right? They've been through everything together, and they literally will not let him come to battle. They say, you're too important. If you die, the whole thing comes down. Right. And that's really the idea of the king, is like, it's not that you're not willing to get in there with the guys. It's the fact that your value to the kingdom is no longer swinging the sword. It has to be so high level that it's the relationships with the nations around you, or the whole entire system of all the other pieces, the farm ground and the this and the that, all the other pieces of the kingdom. Right. And so for me, not knowing my dad when I grew up, right, single mom family, I came from absolutely no money, right? My mom worked 2 and 3 jobs all the time and taught me 100% work ethic. Like, if you want it, freaking ain't nobody going to give it to you. So go get it. If you want it, go get it. Otherwise, quit complaining. That was like, if I could say anything about my mom, like, holy geez, like, just straightforward as they come, right? And so what that led me to was, okay, I want to go get some. I want to go get more. But then eventually that led me into this thought of, okay, what am I really designed to be? And if I'm really designed to be the king, then I'm not all of a sudden the king, right? Like, if I'm designed to be a builder or something of a kingdom, like, then I have to go through these stages of learning, grinding, fighting the battles, getting bloody unto that identity. And so I'll say the identity is a huge piece in me, because not only did I not know my dad growing up, but then at 24, I met my dad, and I look just like him. I say things just like him. He didn't know who I was. I didn't know who he was. It was just kind of a crazy story. But my last name now, Wolfe, is his last name. I changed it when I was 24 years old. So literally I changed my actual identity. But what it helped me understand was who I was and who I'm created to be, which for me specifically just was, I'm a builder. I'm a pusher. I'm a shover. I want more, not because I'm unsatisfied, of like ungrateful and like, never, like, just always never ending. It's just, this is who I am. I'm designed to push constantly and push the boundaries. And that's okay. Some people in the world call it a workaholic. I say, look, this is how I'm designed. And if I try to do something different, it's literally going to go against the identity of my creation. You know what I mean?
I just want to say something, and I'm sorry to cut you off. I hate that word workaholic. Because at the end of the day, I'm going to tell anybody out there who wants to create anything substantial for themselves, there's no such thing as balance. Yeah. So when they say that you're a workaholic, it's because they want balance. And I'm sorry, I know I cut you off.
No, it's good.
That word just bothers me, bro.
Totally. So, yeah. And you're right. You're right. It's a mindset issue, really, but it's also an identity issue, right? And some people aren't designed to push and shove and give everything, right? And so they look at that and they have this aggressive like pushback toward it. And that's fine. Look, like, if that's not how you're designed, then that's not your identity. That's completely fine. I just know who I am, right? So what that also does is it gives me confidence, which we talked about on my show as well, of like, if I know who I am, then I really don't care what you think. Like, I gotta be perfectly me, unapologetically me. That doesn't mean that you're, open-minded and not coachable and not willing to learn and that type of thing. It just means that, like, you just got to be so comfortable in your skin. And for me, it's how it's my identity of who I am, literally who I am, like what my last name shows. I met my dad. He owns multiple businesses, and he's different scenario, like different businesses, but he thinks, like, when he's driving from one client to the next, he's a large and small animal veterinarian, owns a couple of different clinics and has cattle and land and all kinds of stuff. But when he's driving from one to the next, he's thinking, how do I do more? Not because he doesn't have enough, not because his family isn't well taken care of, because that's how he's designed. It's how I'm designed, question,
powerful question right there. How do you do more? Memorize that and ask yourself every single day. But, it's one thing always ways to understand that's your identity for yourself, right? To go ahead and want to be a builder and create this, kingdom for yourself. Where'd the passion come from? Where did the passion come from in order to want to help others do it?
Yeah, because that's an extension of what it means to be a king, because the warrior is actually out for himself, right? When you're building a six-figure business unto seven, and I kind of always translate these to numbers. It doesn't have to be exactly about these numbers, but you have to build a business and it has to be selfish. They're about your goals. It's about your income, about your sales, because it has to be in order to get it big enough. But once you hit a certain perspective in business, in life, however we're talking here, there it becomes about other people. And it becomes about your family, your kids, your spouse, your extended family, your community, your church, the things that you're giving your time to. And that is also the kingly perspective. And so we bring that up in the mastermind so many times, is because how I'm pressing into my business is one thing. I can strategize about sales and the X's and O's and the leadership development and all the things inside the business. But what that translates to, or what it should translate to also, is what kind of dad am I? What kind of husband am I? What am I doing inside of my community here in Kansas City? Am I meeting with local people? Am I giving to an organization? Am I on the board of a nonprofit? Do I go to church somewhere? Like, what's my involvement? Who am I impacting besides just myself?
Contribution, baby, contribution. That's what it comes down to.
100%. And if you have that perspective of a king, right? Like, you have to have that understanding of like the weight of the kingship, the weight of the crown, the weight of all of everything is not just like making money. It's like, no. You've been given the identity of who this person is because you're able to hold it. Therefore, then you are able to give it.
And a lot of these things we actually did talk about on your podcast. There's a reason why I'm asking you, kind of similar questions, because, you got my perspective. Now I'm trying to get your perspective. So anybody watching this, definitely go ahead and check out the podcast I did with Chaz. This way you can kind of see my perspective and his perspective are very similar. But, I think that, another thing that happens with kings, quote unquote kings, and I got to, bring up Gary Vee because he talks about this a lot. At the end of the day, everybody has a false narrative of what a king really is. If you think about it, when they're building their own empire, they work for the king, right? But in reality, the king doesn't have people working for them. He's supposed to take the responsibility to make sure he's providing opportunity and contributing to society and, the marketplace for others. So he's working for them to provide them with the opportunity, and they have to take advantage of it.
100%. And to translate that into business terms, I got so excited year after year as I was building different businesses where I could provide different opportunities, either for my current people or as I developed new businesses in different industries, how I could connect with different players, whether it be salespeople or different executives along the way that, would do certain tasks or not. But it's like, man, if you understand what you just said, which is the servant leadership perspective, then it's almost your responsibility, right? If you know this is your identity, if you're listening to our words here and like, okay, I'm a king, it doesn't mean necessarily that you just wear the crown and get to sit on the throne and do nothing. It means that the responsibility level just went through the roof. And most people just aren't willing to take that responsibility. That's the problem. And it doesn't have to be a problem. It just means that they don't get the benefits of being the king.
100%. And a really good book about this concept that we're talking about, being a servant leader. It's actually Evan Carmichael's book, Built to Serve. He kind of breaks it down on, at the end of the day, our obligation as a leader is to ultimately serve the people and give them that opportunity. So anybody out there, definitely go ahead and check out that book. So once again, I told you I wanted to get into the real estate stuff because, I know you like the real estate stuff and, I'm big on the real estate stuff as well. So talk about this transition from, helping entrepreneurs go from 6 to 7 figure income earners, and then all of a sudden, you got the real estate as well. I know that you got how many units?
Yeah. So the units are, the hold piece has been like my first, deal. So it's just me on that side. And so we've got about 30 units, me. And then just recently we started doing, using the other people's money program, that everybody seems to be on. But for me, for a long time, real estate was, how do I provide a legacy for my children? That's all it was. And I didn't want a big number of doors necessarily. It's, of course, the more doors, the more income. But for me, it was, how do I take what I've got now and be disciplined to move it over? And maybe it makes me money now, maybe it doesn't. I was kind of, naive when it comes to just the different ways and creativity in real estate. But what I held on to was that I needed to get started. I just needed to get started. I needed to start buying things. And so we at that point, it was, a couple of single family homes, Then it was a small apartment complex. And then it turned into short-term rentals. And then now it's turned into fix and flip, unto long-term, short-term holds, like a lot of stuff going on inside of the organizations that I'm a part of. I'm a silent investor in a company that probably has, I don't know, 350 units. Right. So it's like, I can beat the chest all day long about the units, but it's like, what it means to me is what I want to translate, which is legacy, right? Like when my children are old enough and my grandchildren are old enough, there's going to be things in place, assets in place that they can then take and do something different. So I'm going to take it back just to one more time with King David, is that King David wanted to build the temple, but he didn't. In fact, God told him, you're not the one. You got too much blood on your hands, right? But your son will. And so what David took that as is, okay, great. Now my role is the gatherer, right? So I'm going to gather all the things together. And so freaking King Solomon, he steps in like he's been doing this. Yeah, exactly. Like he's been doing it for years, which he hasn't been. He's a young guy. He builds this huge thing. He's the richest guy ever. All these people love and trust and adore him. But it was because of what David did. And so that's what I know my role is, right? I know I'm a David. I know I'm gathering the things necessary for my children and my grandchildren. I have no idea what they're going to do, but it's going to be so big that I can't even fathom it. It's going to be incredible. It's my job to make sure that they're prepared and ready, not only mindset and like everything ready to handle it all, but also to have the actual, gatherings of the assets.
We can go two ways on that. All right. And I'm gonna give you kind of a little controversy in just a moment here, in just a second here, because at the end of the day, first of all, the thing about real estate with me, I think that the reason why I love it is because it's not going anywhere. Even if the market crashes, you still got something tangible, right. Unlike the stock market. And that's why, bro, it's sketchy, the stock market. My wife's like all about the stocks and stuff. And I'm just like, nah, I don't trust it, because at the end of the day, I could go negative, and then I'm like, what do I do now? And then,
right.
At least the market crashes in real estate. I got something tangible. I can still get a little bit of money back. It's more a secure investment. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%.
That's why I love the real estate. Okay, now let me bring the controversy to you. All right. So what you just said, that you're supposed to build the foundation through the real estate, building the legacy, right, for your son to make the name, right?
Sure. Yeah.
There's two ways that can go. One, he can go ahead and actually take it all in and really understand what he's been provided with and really take advantage of the opportunity.
Yep.
But two, and this is where Dan Penna talks about, the best thing that you can give a child is to have them be born into poverty,
yes.
right? Because then they don't appreciate it. And I think that especially in today's society with social media, et cetera, it's very easy to fall down that slippery slope.
100%.
So in your perspective, in my perspective, it comes down to the mindset, just like you were saying. But how do you ensure that it doesn't go down that route? To build the kingdom you're looking
for? The reality is that my kids are going to have a different life than me from the beginning, right? They know me. They know their dad. They know their father. I didn't know my dad growing up. He didn't know I existed. I thought somebody else was my dad who was in and out of prison, right? Never called anybody dad in my life until I was 25 years old. Okay. So their life is already going to be different, right? So I can't necessarily recreate everything that I've been through from like a direct perspective. But what I can look back on and go, okay, what were the things that I went through that made me who I am today, right? Whether the things that I was deprived of or the things that I had to figure out, like I can remember being 16 years old working at Sonic, and I had just enough money to go from work to school, back to work for gas purposes, right? I was always on E, and like my whole tank would get me back to school and back to work. And that's what I worked for. It just straight pissed me off. And I had all my friends who had nice cars and a full tank of gas. It wasn't even the nice car that pissed me off, bro. It was the full tank of gas. Okay. How do I give my kids that perspective? That's the question as a first-time generation wealth holder, really. That's what we're talking about, right?
Correct.
How do I pass that along, that opportunity to learn what it feels like to have no money for gas? Right. And so I think that as my kids get older, we'll continue to have moments, but I'll give you an example. My 8-year-old daughter. Okay. I'm already talking to her about money. She knows how much she has in her account. She has targets around trying to get to a certain number. She has tasks around the house that she gets paid for and ones that she doesn't get paid for. Okay. And so one of the ones that she gets paid for, she gets to collect the eggs. We've got about 25 chickens. She gets to collect the eggs. And she also knows how to make eggs. I'll get to that here in a second. But this whole system,
she's one step ahead of me.
Yeah. Well, so at 8 years old, I'm teaching her not only how to work, but then I'm gonna show you how I showed her how to create a system. Okay, so she goes out and collects the eggs. We get about 20 eggs a day. Okay, and we're gonna pay her. We're not going to. This is when we set this up for her. She's been doing this for a while. She gets paid 4 eggs each time she collects the eggs. So each day she can earn 4 eggs. And so she keeps her eggs over here to the side. She marks them. And then what she can do with those is she can cook daddy eggs in the morning. Okay. I'm going to pay her to make eggs. She knows how I like the eggs. I've taught her how to make the eggs. She scrambles them, puts a little cheese on it, put a little butter on the toast. And then she has to do the dishes afterwards. I pay her $2. So she knows that she can make $2 every single day. I'll eat them every single day. Every day she makes them, I'll eat them. So it's $14 a day. She knows it. She's like, oh my gosh, daddy, I can make $14. Yes, you can. She's like, this is really exciting. I know. So what do you have to do though? Got to collect the eggs every day. I got to keep my eggs organized to the side because that's my inventory now. And I got to be able to provide a service, which is cook the eggs the way that daddy likes it. Also with a smile, because good service along with the product is how you're going to win. And so I want you to smile and tell me good morning and make sure that my cup is full and got ice in it. And like really, really all the way to the nth degree, excellence. Right. And then before you're done, you got to wash the dishes, wiped off the counter, like everything gets returned back. You close the loop. Right. Then I pay you the $2. And she's like all excited and stuff. I'm gonna go, so can I teach you one more thing? She's like, of course. I'm like, okay. So your little brother, he's only 3. We're not going to teach him how to do this quite yet, but imagine if you paid him a quarter to collect the eggs for you. Okay. So every day Tatum goes and collects the eggs for you. Right. So the eggs get brought in, you then separate out your 4, you pay him a quarter. How many quarters would you have to pay him? Okay. Well, quarter by 7 days, $1.75. I think it's math. Okay, great. Now imagine your younger sister. She's just a couple years younger. We taught her how to make the eggs. She can make the eggs, do the dishes, and you pay her $1. Right? How much would you have to pay her? $7. Okay. So she's just like, okay, $14 minus the $1.75 minus $7. Well, daddy, that only leaves me with $4.25 or whatever the math is, right? I said, yeah. But what were you doing? Nothing. I said, and that's how your father makes money.
When they said that you were a system genius, they were not lying. You literally figured out how to have a personal chef with minimal expense. And you're teaching your kid. You know what
teaching my kid, right?
Genius.
100%. Super practical. And at 8 years old, she understands not only how to collect money, how to do work, because she's got to go outside. She's got to, put her boots on. She's got to like do the work, rain, shine, snow, whatever. And she understands the value of money. Now she can go buy something or save something. We've got some credentials on the backside. Once she earns, she's got to put it in certain buckets and teaching her about money that way as well. So long-winded answer, but that gives you hopefully an answer of how we're going to produce these children that like aren't just like brats,
Bro, that's a good answer, because I think that, what happens is like, when people are brought up with a, kind of wealth foundation, right? They don't really understand because the parents aren't instilling work ethic into them, and they're not understanding how money actually works and how to actually delegate and actually have those systems in place, which, I think that's honestly like a great way, the way that you're doing it, with your daughter, because you're basically teaching her how to be an entrepreneur.
100%.
You're basically teaching her that once she's of age and she has the foundation with the finances to go out there and just create her own kingdom with also a foundation. You know what I'm saying? So,
right.
Genius. Next, you got to, I was saying this before, laundry. Laundry is the next one.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was taught how to do laundry when I was 9 years old. And then my mom was like, basically, if you want clean clothes, you'll do your own laundry. So that'll be replicated to your point. How do we replicate those scenarios? That'll be replicated in this house for sure.
But you know what else I think that it really teaches them? Not only, the systems and the knowledge of how to delegate and really understand how to spend your time, but also the discipline of trying to figure out those kind of systems, right? Because now they're evaluating the systems and you're teaching them, okay, this goes to this person, this goes to this person. It's really just helping their mind work in a different way than society actually thinks about money itself, right?
Yep, 100%.
That's huge, especially at her age of 9. Bro, I wish I had somebody doing that for me.
Right? Like how much further would we have been along? How much more ready would we have been at 18? I was pretty ready at 18, but I didn't understand any of that.
Bro, I wasn't even ready until like 3 years ago. Kid you not. Like if you would have seen me at fucking 19, I had long hair, pierced nose, baggy clothes, skater, snowboard kid, smoking pot still.
Yeah.
Like I had no idea about money. I couldn't even keep like $2. As soon as I get it, I'd spend it. So
Yep.
you're setting your kids up for success. I like it. Now I got to start thinking about how to leverage your system for Leo.
There you go. You got some time.
So talk to me, but obviously we don't have too much time left. But Chaz,
Yeah.
talk to me about the three biggest mistakes that you have made, or the three biggest lessons that you realized in the real estate game.
In the real estate game specifically. Okay. So I would say the first thing is it was the mistake also / it was probably the best thing that I did is I just got started. I didn't wait. I didn't try to like do a bunch of research and figure out what the best niche was, or I just knew I needed to start buying. And so like I said, I bought some single family homes. I bought a small apartment complex. I was not dialed in, not focused from an angle of like where I was going specifically. I just was dialed into, I need to buy assets. And so for me, at 27, 29, 31, that was okay because I was just taking action. But at the same time, looking back, if I had just been a little bit more, if I had just spent more time there, that wasn't my main business though, right? Like I was in the process of scaling, 7 franchises in 3 states, 55, 60 employees in my 20s, right? If I had done that with real estate, I would have something very different, but I was dialed in over here. And so it's like a blessing and a curse in the same moment. Looking back, I wish I'd done it differently, but I was over here doing this other thing. So that's number one. Number two would be that if you just know that real estate probably has an option for you, right? Like a lot of people get intimidated. And so again, you can do a lot of different things in real estate. It's like very, very open and creative. And so I think it wasn't a mistake that I've made, but I think a lot of people don't because they don't know like how it applies. Because you can just go different angles and get creative, and you can do this, but not that. And you can just really do whatever you want in real estate. It's actually incredible, which I think is overwhelming to most people. And so then they don't do anything. And then the third thing is just scaling. I would say that, I've heard Grant Cardone say this many, many times, is that I never wish that I had bought slower, right? Or not done things as fast. And so not to say that I think I've done things slow, because I've been very, very disciplined. And like I said, with the different outlets of however many units we've got connected to, but I'm just been always thankful that I've done it, but of course, always wishing that I could have had more resources to do more and do it more faster.
100%. I'm on the same page with you, bro. So if you want to go into some deals together, let's do it. So this way we have more resources, we bring them together, and we make,
That's awesome. Yep. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a couple, I've got so many different outlets. Just there in South Florida, like I was just talking to you about, we bought, it's 3 units, but it's like, it's a little compound, it's like a little triplex, and then 2 places up front. So it's technically 5 units. That was like, I don't know, 750,000, and immediately it was worth $1 million. We're taking that money and putting it into another $2.1 million piece of property in South Florida, like in a month from now. Like it's just about more 100%. Different angles, different places. That same organization I told you about that has a couple hundred units. We're building out a huge fund opportunity for short-term rentals, trying to buy 12 to 30 unit complexes all over the country for short-term purposes. It's like you have the opportunity to run with some pretty big names, and a lot of things can happen pretty quickly, but you just got to get started. And so it's like both and, right? Like just get started, but then there's also lots of ways.
Get started. 100%. Yeah. Now I'm going to ask you this one last question. And this is my favorite real estate question, because I always get a variety of different answers for this. Okay. I have my personal, outlook on how I go about this specific scenario with real estate, but I'm always interested to hear the answers on what is your process of finding properties, whether it's multi-units or you're finding something for, short-term rentals, because this is something that I feel like a lot of people get stuck at.
Yeah. Well, first off, the answer is you have to create a buy box, right? And I love that language that was just recently brought to me from a partner of mine. But before that, I would just call it your criteria, your bumpers, right? But your buy box is, okay, well, what is it that I'm looking for? So in the marketing game, we call it your avatar, right? Or in your business, as you're going after a specific age group or a specific demographic. It's the same thing with real estate. You have to, okay, what am I trying to do? What is the end game? What's the purpose? Okay, so if it's short-term rental, then there are areas in the city of Kansas City where I cannot put a short-term rental. So I shouldn't be looking at property in this area, right? Like that helps me narrow my focus. So if you create a buy box, then you just put the property in the buy box. Does it fit? If it doesn't, it goes away. If it does, you look into it. You press in, you figure out negotiation. Does it work? Does it not? Where's the money coming from? So forth, so on. But the buy box is absolutely the answer.
What about the process of actually finding those properties?
Okay, the actual acquisition
about
piece.
The buy box. Correct. Because I have my own way once again, and I've heard so many different people, and I'm telling everybody out there who's in real estate, stop doing the driving for dollars. Only, if you find something that you're passing by, then utilize that.
Sure.
It's so outdated. There's so many more efficient and effective ways of actually acquiring properties. But I love this question because I always get different answers from everybody. So I'm curious.
Well, I think the different answers are going to come down to the industry, which kind of makes sense for the buy box. And so like for us on our fix and flip side, like our buy box is going to be within a certain purchase price, a certain renovation price, and a certain sale price. And so that's going to lead us to buying information around like vacant homes, or maybe they're behind on their taxes, or like you're purchasing information to market to based on the buy box, right? So it all kind of does still come back to the buy box, but it's just like the tactics that you're using to then market to those deals might be different, right? So if your buy box is 150 units or more, then you're probably not going to, look on the homes that are vacant list, right? And so like the tactics might be the same over here. Maybe there's a list of distressed, larger property owners, but probably what's likely at that level is that you're looking to either renovate a portion of it, or you're looking to just to purchase and hold. Like, again, it comes down to the buy box. So I think that we can talk about acquisition tactics probably all day. But I mean, there's mailers, there's phone calls, texts, like you said, you could drive for dollars. You name it, bro. Lots of ways to drum up business.
Hands down, bro. And, I'm not sure if you agree with me on this. The best luck that I've had, even with multi-units or residential or even commercial properties, I found lien abatement properties. Hands down, the best way to actually find those properties. You can literally go to your town and you literally acquire a list. They'll give you the runaround. Oh, I don't know what you're talking about, but you have to find the right person, and you have to actually continue pursuing it. They even have town ordinance hearings.
Yep.
And you could even sit in on those hearings, right? So you could find out when the judge actually calls the property owner if they're going to do something about the liens on there. And if you could tell from that conversation that they're not going to do anything about the lien, they're going to lose the property. So that homeowner rather get something than nothing. You approach those and you get the property for pennies on the dollar. So that's my strategy. I've even on the multi-units, the 51 units in Pennsylvania that I literally got for, if somebody found out how much I actually acquired them for, they'd literally like have their jaw to the floor. Whether it's awesome. Multifamily, single family homes, commercial properties, I've always found the best luck through lien abatements.
Yeah, I mean, it's data, right? Like there's different types of data out there, and you got to be able to figure out what works best for your buy box. I love it.
100%. So Chaz, let's say, for example, somebody wants to, check out your podcast, get more insights on your mentorship program, or even want to do, talk some real estate with you. How do they actually find you, and where can they get in contact with you?
Yeah, man. You can find me on social, Chaz Wolfe on all the socials, or Gathering the Kings. The name of the podcast is called Gathering the Kings. The name of the mastermind is called Gathering the Kings. You can go to chazwolfe.com or gatheringthekings.com and and see if it's the right fit for you. We're looking for only the right fit. We're definitely not a sign everybody up type of a place. But if it's a right fit, then we definitely are open arms to the right guys who want to grow and level up for sure.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here. Chaz, I appreciate you joining us. Until next time. And we're going to do one in person, Absolutely. By the way. So, yes, sir.
100%. Love it. Got to come to the studio, man.
Yes, sir. When you come out here, let me know. What's going on, guys? If you guys like that episode of the True Life Network podcast, make sure you like, subscribe, and make sure to go ahead and turn on those notifications so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. Any upcoming episodes. Any upcoming episodes. Any upcoming episodes. Any upcoming episodes.